Good evening. Hi, Usman. Welcome to GTM Talk. I'm really glad to have you as a part of GTM Talk. I'm actually doing an episode after a really long time. I'm glad we finally were able to get time on our calendars to record this episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashish. We've been trying to schedule this for a very long time, so I'm really glad I'm here. And yeah, really excited to dive deeper into a couple of SEO, AEO related topics.
Yeah, when you say SEO, AEO, the first thing is it SEO? Is it AEO? Is it GEO? Is it something else? These are all different terms that everybody keeps using. So, what is the term that we need to use today?
To be honest, it's hard to say. I keep debating this in my own head because essentially it is search engine optimization. Now, do we consider AI search to also be a search engine? Perhaps terminology wise, the most accurate would be to say it is SEO, but we also need to recognize that this is being acknowledged as a new category. So when people say AEO and you still want to call it SEO, you can call it SEO from a practices standpoint. Like the tactics are overlapping, and you're doing essentially the same things. Fundamentally, you're getting your brand discovered by some of these search systems. But essentially, when people say AEO and GEO, there's a new market for that. So I think, in my opinion, it is a new market. We need to acknowledge it. It's something new. There are also some practices that are in fact unique to AI search. So, in my opinion, I think these are slightly different things, although the fundamentals are the same. So, if you ask me, to be honest, I think there's a really good analogy for this. I was listening to Mike King from iPullRank, and he talked about how people somehow confuse these two categories and they shouldn't be confused together. And he made a really good point. He was like, if practices are the only thing that make two categories the same in marketing, then why is it that we call link building and sales outreach, although they both involve the practice of reaching out to someone? So even if the tactical practices are pretty much the same, we can still call them two different practices if they're geared towards different channels, different metrics, and the goals are slightly different, etc. So I think these are slightly different things, although the fundamentals are the same.
Got it. No, makes a lot of sense. Before we dive deep into any of these subjects, right? I'd like to take a step back. Who's Usman Akram? And tell us about your journey in the world of SEO. How did you get into SEO? I understand that you've been on the agency side. You've been right now on working for a company. You do consulting. Tell us all about yourself.
Yeah, no, so I have been in the SEO and now AEO world for quite a while. I think I started maybe back in 2019, if I'm not wrong. This was like superbly early when I was just, reaching out to a couple of people, trying to understand what this SEO thing is. I was trying to watch YouTube videos, learning about the fundamentals. So this was quite early. I was still in university. I remember how it got started was I was back home from university in my vacation days, like summer vacations. And I was like, my elder brother used to run his, you know, like casually running a part-time business in the form of a software development agency. It later became a serious thing. But I was like, hey, I have some free time on my plate. Can I do something? Can I just like, help you out in some capacity? And he was like, I have a website. Do you want to do something for it, maybe from a marketing standpoint? That's where I started to do a couple of things for him, like just like recording a couple of videos talking about website design and stuff, which I had absolutely no idea about, by the way. So, and that's where I was like, maybe I'll just put together some articles on the website. So I did that, and that's when I realized that you cannot simply put out content and expect people to come and consume the content automatically. You need to get traffic somehow, and that's where I was like, oh, so SEO is a thing. So that essentially started the journey. I started working with some local agencies at the start. This was still in 2019, 2020. And then later on, I joined a SaaS company here in Pakistan. They had an office back in San Francisco, and I was their first marketing hire. It was Unlayer, which is still operating. It is a Y Combinator company at this point. They're doing well. I worked there for a while, and that was my introduction to B2B SaaS primarily. From that point onwards, I joined an agency in Europe. It was called Flying Cat Marketing. It still operates, but in a different sort of a setting now. And we were specializing in B2B SaaS companies as a vertical. We were working on organic growth, organic search primarily. So that's where my agency journey started. From that point onwards, it was one agency after another. I joined Triple Dart after that. I joined Omniscient after that, where we also worked together on a project. And later on, finally, right now, I'm here at Modash, where I'm leading SEO, AEO, and also paid search a little bit. It's like, called Discoverability as a function at this company. We're an 8-figure B2B SaaS company in the influencer marketing space, and I'm running the show here from a search standpoint. So that's pretty much it. On the side, I really like to do consulting for the B2B SaaS companies who are not looking for an agency or, let's say, full-fledged execution, but rather someone to work with, as a fractional head of SEO sort of a person. So yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Got a very interesting journey. One thing I've realized is I'm actually seeing quite a few SEO experts coming out of countries like Pakistan, Turkey. I don't know what, and a lot of people from India as well. I don't know whether I have, I don't know whether the region has anything to do with this, but I remember not doing a course, but reading a lot about this one particular SEO expert from Turkey. I forget his name,
Hmm.
and
Kore,
it's just
maybe?
yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think, to be
He
honest, I could be wrong in my assessment, but I feel like in this region specifically, um, SEO has always been seen like a technical field somewhat, which is like,
Mhm.
the folks who, for example, has formerly in the past excelled doing SEO were the folks who were like more technical in their mindset. And at this point, when we're thinking about, for example, the integration of AI search, it feels like, in fact, that mindset could be holding you back. But, anyways, I think, in my opinion, like South Asia and then some of these other countries, they have good SEO talent mainly because they're people with good technical mindset. But now we're entering a new era where you also need, like a really strong understanding of customer psychology and branding and, other kind of things. So it might shake up things a little bit. But yes, in the past, we've definitely seen a lot of great talent coming out of this region.
Got it. Yeah, made sense, Usman. Usman, now just diving a little deep, right? So, with respect to uh, discoverability at Modash, you had mentioned, right? Like, the first time I'm hearing discoverability, AI discoverability or discoverability as a designation or as a role. Usually, what we see is we see SEO heads, SEO managers, we see things on that side, or we see or we have organic positions, or we have growth positions, and then we have paid positions. Tell me a little more about the discoverability lead role that you run at Modash, and what is it that what are your goals like at Modash?
Yeah, to be honest, I absolutely love the way this company is structured. So we have a marketing team. It's of decent size. Um, so I remember on LinkedIn initially when AI search came out, someone came up with this idea of a role. Like this was some other company, some other person. I don't even remember, but I heard the term findability, and I was like, this very accurately describes what I do, which is, I help brands get found on search as a medium. But then search could be Google, search could be AI search, search could also be maybe even Reddit or some other platforms. But I basically help brands get found by some of these search systems. That's essentially what I do. I saw Ryan, who's our head of marketing at Modash, came up with this theme of discoverability. And again, it resonated. It was pretty much the same thing as findability as a term. So it resonated with me. And it's the way it's structured is, if you think about marketing, it's like, there's marketing where you do it for the future sales, which is, branding and maybe, content that you put out on YouTube and TikTok and other kind of channels, which is still trying to make money. It's just that we're trying to build a brand for now. And then we hope maybe, 36 months from now, 12 months from now, someone, because of a consistent brand affinity, will turn to Modash once they're looking for a solution like this. uh, and then there's the market within branding, not branding, marketing. There's this area of marketing which is focused on that 5% of the buyers who are ready to buy, ready to make a purchase, who are in market looking for a solution, looking for a vendor. And discoverability sits to capture that 5% of the market. And of course, when you think about that 5% of the market, it's mainly coming into search mediums like Google, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, as ads, right? Because it's again a search system essentially, and they're coming in with specific intent in their mind. They know exactly what they want, or at least they have some idea of it, and they're trying to search for category keywords or prompts. They're trying to find solutions of their pain points. And maybe in some cases, they're in fact running brand oriented searches, but they're essentially looking for a solution. So when we say discoverability, it's a nexus of SEO, AEO, as well as paid search to capture those people who already know what they want, and they just want to get to the point where they can finally make a decision and sign up or book a demo, while the rest of the marketing team is focused on focusing on the long term influence of the buyer journey. So that's how I think about it. And again, like, this sort of a framing makes me just like think more holistically about the kind of work that I want to do, which is not just limited to Google, not just limited to LLMs, but also, for example, if we need to run some sort of a Reddit visibility program, right, that would also fall under my premise. So yeah, that's how I frame it mentally.
Got it. That is a very interesting way or take on how new age companies, I'd say, are thinking about this. But kudos to you and your entire team on coming up with this post. Usman, help me understand, right? So if you said you started SEO 2019. 2019 was a very different ball game. What it is today is a very different ball game. How has SEO changed in terms of KPIs? What were the KPIs that was tracked back in the day versus what needs to be tracked now?
Yeah, to be honest, the entire game has changed, and of course, that also means a change in how we measure the program's success. So I think largely, if I was to summarize this from a bird's eye view, I would say in the past you could still win by just deploying some really smart SEO strategies, and that's where you would have seen a lot of affiliate marketing websites, the kind of websites that you see which do not have a strong brand behind them, but because they know how to rank a page, they can still drive traffic and make money. And of course, those kind of businesses still exist. It's just that they're very rare to see these days. What we now see Google and AI search, etc., rewarding are the kind of companies who have a strong brand that people are actively looking for. And it's the kind of things that basically are hard to fake, right? In the past, we would be like, oh, so we want reviews. Can we buy some reviews? And that would be enough. But now when we say we want reviews, it's like, oh, so we actually want reviews from actual folks, because search engines are going to be looking at so many different points, and they can now validate whether this is an actual user review or just something you know swooped up like a spammy user or whatever. Anyways, so I think it's mainly just good marketing where you build a brand that people want, and then on top of it you have some best practices for search engine optimization. Now, in terms of measurement, I think there are a couple of things that have significantly changed. One is that we were obsessed with traffic, right? Like in the past, because that was the only model we knew. We were like, hey, we're going to rank, we're going to drive traffic, that's going to drive conversions. And now it has driven us towards a different sort of a mindset in the form of zero click marketing, right? Rand Fishkin and Amanda from Spark Tour talk a lot about this, which is that we're definitely trending towards um, clicks going down year over year gradually. And ultimately, we might get to a point where all of the individual pieces of content that we create, maybe a blog post, a landing page, might not get any traffic at all. Maybe like 5% of what we're currently getting. We're definitely trending towards that sort of a situation. And in that world, we still want to do marketing, we still want to do search engine optimization. So how do we do that? We're looking for KPIs and metrics related to visibility and brand perception. So I think that's a massive change in itself, because now when I'm getting on calls with companies, they're not saying, hey, we want more traffic. They're like, hey, we want to hit this conversion goal, this revenue goal, etc. And if we can do that, we're going to be fine, as long as you have some sort of attribution that works to show that this worked, right? So for example, if I'm working with a company for AI search and they see a correlation between visibility growing for relevant prompts, and at the same time their self-attributed conversions are also growing in the same exact time period, they're going to be fine even if traffic has not exactly followed that sort of a trajectory. So I think that's number one. Like, a massive focus on traffic used to be a thing, and now it's just more about how visible is your brand and what is the perception of your brand that AI is pushing to the users. And then secondly, there are other kind of things like more tactical. Like, of course, when we say traffic, it also means in the past we were like, hey, clicks are sanity, and impressions are vanity. And now people are also caring about impressions because clicks are just going down gradually. There are people also thinking about attribution change. So in the past, we were like, last touch attribution is a default mode. And now we're thinking about other ways of integrating conversions and just giving credit to variety of different touch points, which is interesting. I've seen a lot of focus on self-reported attribution, and rightfully so, because again, AI search is just changing so many things in how we attribute conversions, right? Because they're like the delta between the people who are coming in a last touch attribution model based on our CRM versus the amount of people who are telling us that they actually found us from Claude and ChatGPT is huge. It's like 25% here in self-reported attribution, and maybe only about like 3% in the CRM, right? So again, there's a larger focus on self-reported attribution as a result, and I think at the same time, there's also this, you know, we used to be obsessed with the idea of non-branded traffic. I think that is also going away because again, AI search is blurring the lines between branded and non-branded. So now when we say we've driven traffic, if it is still getting, like if you're still able to achieve higher traffic growth, I don't think there's a way to very concretely differentiate between branded and non-branded, simply because imagine people discovering you through LLMs and then typing your brand name directly in Google, and as a result getting to the website. That will count like a branded search, but the discovery happened maybe through a non-branded prompt inside ChatGPT first, and now they just use Google to get to the website. So again, like it's an attribution mess. So the way I think about it, it's like stick with some of the fundamentals, which is keyword rankings, which is still important for now at least until AI mode becomes a default. Stick with prompts tracking in platforms like Peak AI or Profound. Also measure perception of your brand, which is like, hey, this is how we want our messaging to be represented in AI answers. And this is the inaccuracy that we see. For example, like in the case of Modash, we had a problem where in the past, AI search will always say Modash is an influencer search platform. But we're way more than that. We're like, an influencer marketing platform as a whole. We do so much more than just search. So that's like the perception, the accuracy of how AI is talking about your company. And then make sure that you're thinking beyond the last touch attribution and you're thinking about self-reported attribution in there. You're not limiting yourself to branded versus non-branded search, but you're looking at things holistically. So I would think through all of those couple of things.
So I think that I mean, very valid. I love the way that you framed the entire non-brand brand and the explanation as to how people are actually taking the brand out of that and doodling makes complete sense. So going back, we were trying to identify like what are the different parameters or different KPIs that we need to track. So if I can summarize that, would you say AI visibility, share of voice, citation share, keyword rankings, these would be something that we track in today's AI world. And previously, we obsessed about, let's say, organic sessions, total sessions, organic sessions, non-branded search. This was all obsessed about previously, along with keyword ranking. Do you
I,
think
I
that
think
distinction made sense?
I think somewhat, but then there's a nuance that, when we
Okay.
say the traffic is losing its significance, it hasn't lost its significance right now. So we're in a transition, which means we still need to measure how much traffic we're getting against some of the blog posts or landing pages. Maybe 5 years from now, one can say that, hey, don't measure traffic at all now. Maybe, who knows? But for now, we're still in a period where we have to stick with old models and also start thinking about new models. So I think the way people need to think about this is keep tracking your keywords as a leading indicator, and then check whether, of course, based on rankings improvement, is traffic coming in, what sort of keywords are you ranking for, etc. Make sure that you're also tracking your prompts, segment your prompts into 3 to 4 different categories. There are prompts that you measure specifically to see how AI is talking about your company. What kind of features? Is the pricing outdated? Are there some facts about your brand outdated and wrong? And then then there are prompts that are more non-branded in nature, just to see where exactly you stack in terms of visibility. So when people search what are the best influencer marketing software tools, do you show up? When you show up, how many times? What is the visibility score? All of that stuff. Um, in addition to that, I think there are some additional things that you need to think about, which is when this mess up between attribution happens. Like imagine, Ashish, you're using, you know, ChatGPT to find Modash, and you're like, hey, what are some of the influencer marketing tools I need to think about? You look at 3 to 4 different vendors, and you then search each one of them on Google, and then you get to the website and you convert. The CRM is going to tell me that, hey, Ashish came in from Google search, right? And they typed the brand name or whatever. But I need to know that the discovery happened through an LLM, and what exactly was the prompt, ideally speaking. So that layer of investigation needs to go in whenever a conversion happens, if it's possible. It could be through a self-reported attribution, just to make sure that I'm not, getting misled by this attribution bias, right? This mess up that we have currently. In addition to that, I also think, because of this exact thing, this exact journey that you went through when you discovered a company from LNLM and then you went into Google search, one also needs to track how their branded search volume is growing in general. Because if everything went right in AI search, your branded search volume should be going up over time, not in a specific month, but rather maybe 6 months from now, right? So that would be a good thing to look at. You should check this inside Google Search Console. In terms of impressions, you can also use tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush. And then lastly, I would say one also needs to pay attention to direct traffic now, simply because the bigger this problem of attribution becomes, the more share of which actually was organic search traffic is going to go into direct traffic. And that's again why sometimes if you see your organic search traffic going down, you will at the same time see direct traffic going up or referral traffic going up, right? Because that share is going to those kind of pages. I think there was a really cool study maybe 1 year back that Siege Media released, where they noticed that all of the clients that they had lost traffic to informational content, but at the same time all those companies saw roughly a similar sort of a traffic bump in the homepage traffic. So because of course, if I have an SEO best practice like Ahrefs, if they have a blog post on SEO best practices, maybe in the past I used to read it by searching it through Google. Now at this point, if I just get the same exact answer from ChatGPT, but they're still citing Ahrefs information, right, somehow in their chat interface, I will still get to the homepage of Ahrefs anyways, right? So because of the brand affinity. Like if ChatGPT says, here are some of the practices that Ryan Law shared, who's the director of marketing at Ahrefs, I'm still going to type Ahrefs in Google if I really want to learn more about that company, which means the homepage traffic will go up. So I think it's a really interesting phenomena where you need to measure not just organic search and GA4 type of tools, but rather also referral traffic in the form of AI search tools, as well as direct traffic. And then a couple of other things that we already talked about, visibility scores, perception of your brand, and you can quantify all of that. It's not necessarily like some of these tools, Peak AI, have also come up with features to quantify your brand perception. In the past, you could have also built something similar inside Claude Code by just pulling in data from some of these tools. But yeah, so some of those things, that's how I would think about it.
So no, the what you're saying makes complete sense. It's something I was actually pulling out data last evening, and it's exact. I was just doing a study for Zora and understanding how we are faring and just looking at some metrics. And what you said exactly is what we saw. Where we saw a dip in organic traffic. I see that based on B2B marketing, there's a dip of, I think, last year about 35 to 40 odd percent that companies are seeing a dip in organic traffic. But at the same time we saw direct traffic go up, right? So it's not that
Hmm.
we lost traffic, is that we're getting the attribution or the way that people are searching has shifted. And the third thing that we saw is our branded search volume has increased. And the fourth thing that we saw is our impressions are skyrocketing, right? So I think all of this is exactly what you just mentioned. So Usman, so
Yeah.
would you say if a company has to check if they are doing well in terms of GEO, that they look at data for the last 1 year, 6 months, whatever time frame, if the organic search has gone down, they look at direct to see whether direct has helped with respect to bringing the lost traffic in terms of like from organic. And if impressions have gone up and non-branded traffic has gone up, they are in a decent spot with terms of GEO. Is that a fair assessment to make?
Yeah. I would say yes. I would say perhaps the mindset shift that is required is that in the like what is the goal of everything that you're doing as a marketer? The goal is to get your content in front of the right audience. In the past, we used to do that by getting traffic on all of the blog posts and landing pages that we've created. In the new world, right now we're in the middle, but maybe 2 years from now, if we say that we don't get any traffic, like actual people landing on our blog post, but they rather consume it from ChatGPT summarizing our blog post and just presenting a link to them, and they don't even click on it, let's say, the goal is still served, in my opinion, right? Which is like, hey, you need to present your ideas, your entire model of thinking to the right user. So, for example, if I'm learning SEO and I was like, maybe 5 years back, I'm learning about Brian Dean's skyscraper technique, right? I need to learn about that technique, and Brian Dean needs to make sure that the skyscraper technique is attributed to him. Even if ChatGPT is summarizing that entire piece of content, and I never land on the blog post written by Brian Dean on Backlinko, I think this purpose is still served when I learn about this technique and I learn about Brian Dean as a result. And then maybe 3 weeks from now, I'll just directly type in Google Backlinko and then buy their course or whatever they're selling. So I think about it in the same way. Now, of course, there are companies, there are businesses which by design are going to fail because they relied on traffic, right? That's where publishers or, for example, affiliate websites in the past, all of those who didn't really have something of brand value are gonna fail, of course, right? Because they relied on traffic. So I'm not saying that there are business models which will not fail as a result of AI search integration into search as a whole. But it's just that when it comes to B2B companies, SaaS companies, or any kind of company that wants to sell through their own brand, they should be fine. Now, coming back to your original question, I'll literally just say what I'm doing at Modash, which is we do some stuff. We release new pages, we create free tools, we launch programmatic pages. We still look at rankings and traffic, and that becomes a leading indicator of the final version of success that we want to note, which is conversions. So if we say that we are getting the signups from our ICP from the channels of LLM search, AI search, and Google, of course, in the traditional sense, then we're winning, right? We don't care if it's coming from non-branded versus branded. We don't care if it's maybe organic. Your CRM is saying that organic share is about 3%, but then we're also tracking self-reported attribution, and we see that LLM share is much larger. And of course, if LLM share is much larger, you're not going to see a ton of traffic because that entire channel is not designed to send you traffic. So if you just see your conversions going up, you're fine. Now you want to look at leading indicators of where exactly those conversions are coming from. As long as you're in green, like monthly, the trajectory that you wanted to achieve, you're achieving. You want to look at leading indicators to be able to say which programs are exactly working. And that's where you can make some proxies. You can say, oh, so rankings are going up. And at the same time, we saw conversions going up for the same topic clusters. So if I have, let's say, an affiliate product within Modash, then I'm tracking prompts related to affiliate marketing. I'm ranking on keywords related to affiliate marketing. If in the same time period, the rankings and visibility of those keywords and prompts went up, and the conversions for my affiliate product went up in terms of demand, like signups, demos, or whatever, I think I'm winning. And that's pretty much all I need to know in order to keep investing in this channel. Anything beyond that, in my opinion, is going to get you into an analysis paralysis. Now, of course, there are things that you should keep doing if you have more resources, just to learn more about how to make this program more effective. But when we're talking about is this channel working or not, I'm just trying to create a correlation between leading and lagging indicators, which is signups and conversions. And at the same time, is my proxies like leading indicators of rankings, visibility, traffic going up? On top of it, I think lastly, you can add a layer of qualitative insights where literally some customers are telling us from sales calls, like, hey, we actually found you when we were searching like this. And hey, your SEO team is doing amazing because, whenever I search for anything related to my pain points, you keep showing up. We literally have these insights coming from sales calls. So when you create a nexus of these leading and lagging quantitative metrics, and then on top of it, just throw a couple of qualitative qualifiers, I think that just connects the dot. And you don't need to know anything beyond that in order to qualify whether this channel is working or not.
Yeah, yeah. everything that we do is for revenue and leads. Completely agree with your thought process there, Usman. Yeah. So, Usman, one of the other points that you touched in your while talking about this is using tools like PTAI or Profound or one of these tools for prompt ranking to understand how you're doing in terms of AI visibility. I find this area very interesting, right? I'll tell you why. So when we look at prompt tracking, right? I actually initially I actually uploaded a bunch of prompts that came to me like using our internal knowledge base, whatever. Then I did a course actually in Profound University, and Profound University had a structure in which they said you need to like structure in which you approach on coming up with the prompts so that you're able to take maximum leverage. The challenge that I have with this whole concept of prompt tracking is you're uploading 300 prompts. So you're uploading 400 prompts, how many ever prompts. And within these 400 prompts, it gives you a score whether your brand is shown or not shown. It isn't the true test of time to understand what people are searching for on the internet and whether your brand is showing up. So I'm actually quite lost here because I'm already, let's say I'm already number one for all the prompts I've uploaded. What's the point of me tracking that? I might as well remove those prompts and add prompts where I'm actually doing bad to work on those prompts and see how can I improve. Do you think of it
Yeah.
similarly? Do you have alternative thoughts?
It's I agree. I think it's just, very complicated to figure, like, the problem is when we think about prompt tracking, we're still using the same mental models that we developed as SEOs in terms of keyword rankings, right? Like we're tracking keywords. And the problem is when we look at Google, so if you go back to the basics, how Ahrefs and SEMrush and other tools are presenting you this search volume data, or showing you the keywords that people are actually searching for, they're using, you know click stream data from different providers, and then they're trying to cluster them together into different categories. So they're saying, oh, so email marketing software, and maybe, email marketing software tools, or whatever. They're going to just create larger categories and then show you how people are exactly searching, simply because they cannot capture every single variation that is going into Google search. Now the good thing is people are still searching with short tail prompts, no, sorry, not prompts, keywords inside Google, right? When they're searching, we just are used to searching with short tail phrases, at least in the pre AI overviews era. The problem with prompt tracking inside AI search models is that we can be extremely specific. We can be like, literally 5 lines of prompt just talking about how I want an email marketing software for my team of this size, with this budget, with these integrations and stuff like that. And that just makes it harder to understand what prompts are people searching for as an open ended question, right? So, all of these tools in the market, essentially, even if we're looking at a tool like Profound, I think what they're doing is they're doing statistical forecasting when they're giving you a volume against a particular prompt. Like, is it high volume, low volume? What they're doing is they're saying, hey, we're going to look at our customer base, which is a lot of companies. We're going to look at all of their prompts, and then we're going to use a statistical model to forecast um, whether the volume for project management related prompts, like people searching project management tools, is higher or lower in comparison to the prompts that we have in our index. So it's still some sort of a forecast. I think the best mindset is to just say that, hey, AI search measurement is going to be directional in nature. Like, I wouldn't know at all when the search volume for project management tools is 300 a month or 600 a month. So I think the best proxy that we have is still keywords data in Google, because we can say, oh, so if a lot of people are looking for project management as a category, then most likely a lot of people are looking for the same category in ChatGPT. Now, how do we get to the exact same prompts? Like, when people say project management tools, are they throwing in pricing or budget? Are they throwing in integrations? I think for that you can rely on your, you know, customer conversations, most likely sales calls, and other kind of recordings, or support tickets, etc., to pick out what people are looking for, and then you can use it to approximate how they might be searching in LLMs. So if they say, hey, I wanted an influencer marketing platform, but we only had a budget of about $600, then I can say, okay, so usually people are gonna roughly stay in the range of $400 to $600 when they're looking for an influencer marketing platform like Modash. So I might just approximate how it works. the problem is the people who don't understand how prompt tracking is working in majority of these tools will just say that, hey, the prompt volume that we're seeing in some of these tools is really reliable. Now, another problem is, exactly as you pointed out, um, you can get your visibility higher if you just track the prompts while you're already visible. So
Right.
I can, for Modash, for example, we have a lot of authority around influencer marketing as a topic, and when we track those kind of prompts exactly, our visibility goes to the top. And I'm pretty sure, for example, if my competitors, Hype Auditor, Affluence, other companies that we compete with, their SEOs can also just track prompts a little differently. And then in the same tool, they will also show up to the top. And they'll be like, hey, we're beating Modash. And we'll be like, we're beating Hype Auditor, simply because we're deciding to choose different prompts to track. So I think it's, again, where you need to think about, hey, what are the areas where I think we have generally lower visibility, both in Google search and AI search? And I'm going to track those prompts. Plus, I'm going to set a baseline of what visibility I currently have, and can I create a delta in it in the next couple of weeks and months. So we did this with affiliate marketing. So when we started tracking those prompts, I think we had like maybe 10% visibility, and we knew that because we hadn't posted any content related to affiliate marketing. And in the next couple of months, by working on a variety of different campaigns, we saw an uplift. We're now at around 44%, maybe roughly speaking, on average for all of the affiliate related prompts. But we saw that visibility going up around the same exact time period when we were working on an affiliate related campaign in the last 3 to 4 months. So again, we can approximate and we can correlate that the strategy is working.
Right, Usman. So think about it this way, right? On one side, you need to be reporting to your, let's say, managers, management on what is working, what's not. On the other side, you need to be improving what you need to do in order to get leads, revenue, whatever your core metric is, right? Now, I can't remove all of my prompts that I've input into my Profound or PKI or one of these softwares just because they are ranking number one. Because if they are ranking number one, I want to ensure that they continue ranking number one because they're important. And I also want to start ranking for other prompts where I'm not doing very well. So like I see philosophically what you're saying, but I'm just trying to understand a practical way to approach this. And prompts is money, right? So you have a limited set of prompts you can track. Let's say you have 300 prompts. And within the 300 prompts, how do you go about this? How often should you be refreshing your prompts? Any insights? Have you found any workflows that work for you there?
I think the best way to understand this is you need to understand how exactly is prompt tracking working in the tool that you're using. So for example, if the tool that you're using is mainly relying on APIs, then there would be a decent level of variance every time the same prompt gets sent to the same LLM model. I did some research on this. I think I basically came up with a few set of prompts in 3 different industries, and we asked the same prompts to a couple of different LLMs thousands of times just to see what is the level of variance, right? And even if you send the same exact prompt, like, hundreds of times, like it reduces the variance as soon as you turn up the volume. So if it's, if you ask the same prompt 100 times versus the same prompt 10 times, the variance is going to reduce over time if you just keep increasing the volume, right? Because the error shrinks over time. So in my opinion, if you can track prompts, you need to have higher volume of prompt tracking, like the same prompt maybe, you know sent through the API to different LLM models, maybe on a daily basis, multiple times. Now the problem is that might not be possible for all of these companies, because then they need to charge heavier amounts to their customers. I think Josh from Profound also recently came on the Siege Media podcast, and he talked about the same thing. He thinks it might not be of that much value. Plus, the cost is going to increase tremendously for for the customers, right? Because when we're, let's say, tracking a prompt once daily versus 10 times daily, of course that changes things. So but I think in an ideal world, the same prompts that you're tracking, they don't need to be thousands of prompts. You can track like a small limited number of prompts, the commercial ones that you actually genuinely care. You don't need to track prompts related informational content. Just track the ones where you actually care about someone having a purchase intent, and try to track them on a daily basis, like, sending through API or whatever mechanism your tool is using, with a higher volume, right? With a decent volume. So for example, if your tool is sending like, one API call every week, that would definitely be a problem, right? So let's just put it there that volume is a game when it comes to prompt tracking. Now, when you talk about reporting it to the leadership, I think one needs to create different categories by maybe product units if your company has multiple products, different categories by the level of intent of the purchase journey. So we can say here are all of our category prompts. When someone searches, in the case of Modash, let's say a category prompt is going to be, what are the best influencer search platforms? What are the best influencer discovery platforms, right? And then there are going to be branded prompts where we say, hey, is Modash a good Shopify influencer marketing platform? What I'm looking for a branded, like when I track a branded prompt, I'm mainly looking for how exactly AI is talking about my company. Is it talking about the features that I really want to be surfaced? Is it talking about the pricing in the most updated way? Is it talking about integrations that we have, because that is really important for our customers? So, and if not, and then I need to go back into the sources from which AI is pulling that information about my company, and I need to fix that, right? Because that's where my perception of the brand really matters. And for larger companies, it becomes really important because they don't need more visibility; they just need accuracy in their visibility that they already have. So I think I would create categories by different features or product units that you have. I would create categories by different intents of the prompts, and then I would show the growth to the leadership by setting a baseline. I would say, hey, by the way, for 15 days or 1 month, we tracked all of these prompts. This is what our visibility looks like right now. Now, in the next 3 months, I'm going to create a delta and I'm going to show you how I did it. Right. So if it's like, let's say, hey, we have Loom, they have a screen recorder tool, and now they also released a screenshot related product. I would be like, hey, historically, we have dominated screen recorder as a category, which means if I just only track screen recorder related prompts, our visibility is going to be like 90%. I know that. But what I'm going to do is focus on screenshots separately. And when I report it in my reports, I'm going to talk about it only in isolation. And then what I'm going to do is say, hey, leadership, for the past 30 days, 60 days, we only tracked screenshots related prompt in isolation. This was our baseline, which is roughly about 25%. And now, even if you're already on top compared to the competitors, I want to get this visibility from 25% to maybe 45% or whatever, right? And if you see an uptick in the same time period as the increase in signups for the screenshot product, as the increase in demand from different customers, right? When they come in and they talk about how they're seeing our company way more, that's like the qualitative signal. And in the same time period, against my strategies, when we hired, let's say, an agency, or we started working on a brand campaign or whatever, that just mentions that my strategy is working. Like, I don't need to go into any additional depth of what exactly were the conversations that AI was like, what exactly is the page cited. We don't need to care about that. We just care about brand visibility and visibility with the right perception. So that's how I think about it. I think the problem is, it's very easy for any company to just start tracking the prompt where they're like already superbly dominant and then say, hey, look at this, we just did this. Or get into the trap of random volatility, right? Where someone starts tracking something in the next 30 days, just by complete randomness, the prompt visibility goes up for certain of their features or product units, and they'll be like, hey, look at this, I did this, right? So the problem is, you need to connect the sources. You need to say, hey, this was our baseline, this is the delta that I created, it's matching in timeline with my strategies. And AI search referral traffic also grew in the same time period, signups also grew in the same time period, self-reported attribution also grew in the same time period. That's that's the way you can create like undeniable proof that your strategy is effective.
Yeah, yeah, I think makes complete sense. I completely agree with you. Perfect, Usman. I like how deep we've gone in a few subjects, but we've gone deep on. I like the way we're approaching this and the conversations that we are having today. Uh, Now, to help me understand again, pre pre AI era versus today, how have the team structures changed, and how big a team do you need for what kind of company?
Well, to be honest, I think you don't need a massive team these days. And I'm not trying to say it in the form of like, not trying to be an AI bro who's like, hey, just hire agents. I just feel like there's going to be a reset in what is the team structure like working with actual genuinely useful AI agents, and then you also need human expertise on top of it. So, and to be honest, in my opinion, that just shifts the ceiling, higher, which means you can just do more. So for example, right now at Modash, I think whenever I think about anything new that we need to solve as a problem, my instant thinking is, can I build an automation for this? Can I build can I spawn an agent for this, and turn this into a repeatable task where I can use that agent's bandwidth to consistently solve this problem? If not, only then I will think about hiring someone maybe on a contractual basis, work with an agency or whatever, right? And we've done that. We've done that on various different occasions for different use cases. So, for example, we have a link building agency, we have a design agency. That's human workforce in the form of non full time folks working with you. And then recently we were like, hey, at this point, we've done our fair share of automation in things like keyword research or maybe creating content, etc, but we still need someone to take complete ownership of the blog, right? Someone to be in charge of just making sure that whatever goes on the blog is of elite level quality. Even if they use AI, we don't really care, but we need one owner, right? Someone to be completely in account, to completely take the accountability of the program. So I think the structure that we've had in the past was like, for every single problem, we're going to find a human being and bring them on full time. Everyone had a lot of money to spend. And now it's the opposite, where you're like, uh, I have a budget, I need to work with it. And again, that is just based on my anecdotal experiences talking to a couple of other folks, my peers, and what I'm seeing at my company, where um, it's just that we don't need to find everyone in a full time capacity. Either the conversation shifts towards, hey, let's just work with a bunch of contractors, or can you use AI to do it? And the answer is not always no in both of the cases. Like, you can actually save some full-time seats on your team if you just work smartly. So I think the new modern team structure, in my opinion, is that you have one strategist who is in charge of the entire program of SEO, AEO, and they have a bunch of agents working for them for a variety of different use cases. And I'm again just talking with my experience. I'm not watching some YouTube videos and talking about how an AI bro automated their entire department. There are definitely things that cannot be automated. That's where you need high level human judgment. But there are so many tactical practices which can be totally delegated. So, for example, one micro example of this would be, we work with a link building agency. They usually send, like any other typical agency, a bunch of domains that they want approved, from which they're going to get us placement and stuff like that. And then I review them, approve them. The ones that are approved or rejected, then they take an action on it. I can make the case to my management that, hey, this is, eating up some of my capacity. Can I find someone part time on my team to just work with this agency and take complete ownership? Or I can build an agent if I think the task is very objective in nature. If there are just 3 to 4 things that someone needs to look at in a domain to qualify it as a link opportunity or a brand mentions opportunity, then most likely an agent can do it. So I built an agent, and now it's doing that exact task for the last, I think, 3 months. So I think the new team structure, in my opinion, is going to be a nexus of limited human power, where elite level judgment is required, where AI simply cannot operate, or if it operates, it's going to create very low quality output, coupled with some agents for very tactical work. And as a result of this, I don't think it's the case that we need less human power. It's just that we need more of elite level human power, right? People who have a lot of experience, who are high agency, who can take complete charge of one initiative. They don't need to be told what to do. So we just hire A players along with a bunch of agents for tactical work. I think that's the structure that is working really well for me at Modash. That's exactly how I'm operating on a daily basis.
Got it. Made sense. I just want to double down on or double click on your the agents that you built. I actually saw the other podcast of yours as well, where you spoke about, I think, paperclip and how you use Claude to automate a bunch of stuff. I don't want to get into too many details, but tell me, if somebody's just starting out with automations and they want to build their own agents, and just what you said, if they were to start building out 3 simple agents that can do, let's say, 70% of things that you can automate, what are those 3 main agents that they should first be building out? And the, how or what tools they ideally use to get started?
Yeah, but that's a really good question. I was just chatting with a friend of mine, the last week. He's in the HR space, and I was talking about using automation for his work, and he was giving me a couple of questions and just challenging back the idea of using automation in his line of work. And I was like, we went back and forth. I was like, hey, you can use automation for this use case, for that use case, and he was like, no, I don't think it will work, and just giving a bunch of excuses for some reason. And I was like, I just gave him a question, which I think is the right mentality to have, which is, can you, if you had someone free on your team to delegate a task to, someone junior, who still needs very specified set of actions, when you want to delegate something to them, if you had someone on your team with that extra capacity in a junior space, um, can you delegate this task to them? If the answer is yes, you can definitely delegate it to AI. Now, but I say a junior person simply because we're still not there yet with artificial intelligence where we can say just fix this problem. Like we cannot say like, hey, go build a sales team, but we can definitely say when a lead comes in, take these 3 to 4 specific actions. So with that sort of a mindset, the three automations that I would suggest where I think it works really well across the board would be one, SEO reporting. And the good thing is we don't need to think about the problems to be solved entirely by AI. We can just say, hey, can we get an agent to get this task to 60, 70% of the way? And then I jump in and I move it from 70% to 100%. That's still a solid amount of time and effort saved. So I would say SEO and AEO reporting, usually for agencies, for example, I see this as a massive lever where they can basically just pull the data from a variety of different sources. GA4, Google Search Console, even Peak has an API, and the MCP is also available. Similarly, I think Profound might also be giving something like that available. So if they do, you can pull the data from a variety of different sources. You can say, this is the format that I want you to create the report in, maybe a PDF, maybe a Google Doc, or maybe a complete deck using Gamma. I in fact have a complete walkthrough on this exact subject where I, in real time, automated and created an SEO and AEO report using Claude Code on my YouTube channel. It's very lengthy, but I get it done. And you can polish it further if you want, but that's one of the areas where you can get an AI agent to create the first version of the report, even add comments based on the data that it's seeing, based on the past couple of months of trends. And finally, you can jump in and just make some tweaks and get the report ready. Why? Because a reporting is something which is more objective in nature, right? You're not trying to create a thought leadership content which might be subjective in nature. It's still largely rational and objective. So you can strike it well with reporting. I think that's number one. I would say the second one can be um, content audit. So that's where again you don't need to make it automated entirely. What you can say is, hey, when I think about a detailed content audit that is actually effective, what are different phases that I go through? There's one phase where you're collecting the signals again from a variety of different tools, then you're processing it, deciding what action to take on what page, and then finally you're deciding the exact action and how to execute it. So I'd be like, hey, based on the search console data and maybe average rankings or whatever, this page requires us to delete this, or maybe merge it with a different page, or redirect it, or maybe heavily update it, or whatever, right? So there are three different phases. You collect the signals, you analyze the data, and then you take action. So in my opinion, all three of those can be delegated to AI, and you can come in at the very end, review everything, just do a QA, which again is going to take decent amount of time, but it still saves you literally weeks of effort. So in my opinion, again, a content audit is, and by the way, I remember before we had ChatGPT, I was working at Flying Cat Marketing. This was maybe back in 2022 or 2021. I was doing the same exact thing where this exact part was delegated to a junior SEO specialist. Anyways, right? So it's in your hand. Do you want to delegate it to AI, or do you want to delegate it to a human being? If you delegate it to AI, of course, you can save the time of the human being for even higher leverage work. So what I'm saying is, it's not that AI has made this possible only now. It's just that we had this delegation capability in our hand in the past with humans, and now we can use artificial intelligence for that. So I would say content audit is the second thing. It's a lot of grunt work, when you actually start doing it, and you can automate majority of it. Number three, something that I've recently been using a lot is just QAing my landing pages. So for example, we have a lot of mini tools, free tools, or programmatic pages or other kind of landing pages, which only a developer can touch at Modash, right? For some reason, the infrastructure is set up in a way that if there are, deeply complicated pages, um, or marketing engineer, a complete full-time engineer working in our marketing team, he produces the pages. We give him the design that comes from our design agency, along with a Figma file. He develops the page, and then he used to send it back to me for QAing the page, just for making specific tweaks and stuff, just to polish it further. I I think I did it for like once, maybe once or twice, and then I was like, can I automate it somehow? So what I did, I just spawned an agent that now looks at the Figma file of that page. It looks at this mock-up, like the staging link of this landing page, and then it compares everything exactly and gives me a complete summary of everything that needs to be updated. So it basically picks the Figma file as the source of truth, and it says, hey, this image has this change, and there's this spacing error, and there's this font problem and whatever, and it's superbly accurate. Like, it literally saves me a ton of time. So, and that's exactly the kind of thing that I don't want to do. I think the best way to think about it is like, of course there are some of these use cases that we spoke about, but what are the problems that you don't want to solve on your own? What is the some of the issues that you don't want to use your own brain power for? And if you had an intern on your team, you would have just delegated it to them. If you think about it like that, there are a couple of things where you can use automation.
Yeah, interesting that you did not mention about writing or editing. I found that interesting. Any reason why you didn't pick writing or editing? Because that seems to be AI seems to
To
be
be
used a
honest,
lot in that area.
I think I only didn't mention that because I think it's superbly obvious that you should be using AI
Right.
in content production. Yeah, because I just feel like everyone is doing it. Now, of course, when it comes to content production, there's also a nuance that, how you use it matters a lot, because if anyone can use it, the alpha is going to be in the quality and the depth of piece that you can produce, which means basically the engine that you're using in your automation. Like, what is the fallback logic? What are the sources that you're using? How you're structuring everything, how are the prompts written, all of that stuff. But yes, I just assumed that it's just, so obvious at this point that everyone is using it anyways.
Got it. Understood. And when you say okay, so when you say build agents, uh, where does one start to build these agents? Is it Claude? Is it some other tool? How should somebody get started?
Well, if someone is complete beginner, they haven't used automation at all in any capacity. So in the past there were tools like Zapier and maybe Initen and Make.com, which still are useful, by the way. Um, I would say if someone is still very, very high level and they haven't used any of these tools, you don't need to think about it like something superbly complicated. You don't need to like build your entire army of agents working for you like a team. You will like already 10x your capacity by just creating a couple of skills in Claude. Literally just think about anything that you're already doing, turn it into a written skill, have Claude do it once, and then ask it to turn that into a skill, and then use it every time you do the same task. In fact, like majority of the stuff that I now have customized agents in some of the other tool infrastructure that I use were initially just Claude skills, and then I was like, I want to do this process autonomously, maybe at the same time, like for 15 different pages, working in parallel. So the best way to do that is to turn the skill into an agent. So I would say just like Claude skills themselves are like amazing at giving you leverage. When it comes to building agents specifically, there are like so many different options. But essentially, what an agent is, it's like a workflow, a linear workflow with an LLM making decisions on what part of the workflow to use. So if it's a linear workflow, it's like, hey, we start at point A, then we go to B, and then C, and it works in a linear fashion from A to Z, right? If it's an agent, essentially what we're saying is an LLM has access to a variety of different tools, and it has a goal, and then it decides what tool to use, what tools not to use. So when it comes to an agent, I would say Claude Code, you can build it very easily, where you can say, hey, I want you to use, either if you're running it locally using your own Claude Code session, like using your Claude usage, or by giving it an API of an LLM if you're using OpenAI, or maybe if you're using Anthropic models, just saying, I want you to act like the brain of this entire project, and then I'm going to give you access to, let's say if it's reporting, right? I'm going to say, open up a Claude code session, or maybe Codex, or whatever harness you're using, maybe Cursor. The best way to do it would be to just say, hey, I want to build an agent that does reporting for me, and um, I want you to act as the brain of this entire function. I'm going to give you access to Google Search Console, GA4, maybe Peak AI, or any other prompt tracking tool that you're using. And here's a initial structure of the report that I'm thinking about, but I want you to solidify this further. And then every month, I want you to send this on Slack. Of course, you would also need to give it access to Slack. Now, you can decide how much of that you want to solidify, how much of that you want to give liberty to the agent itself to make choices. But that is an agent in itself. You've automated a task where you've given liberty to the agent. Now, the agent can decide when maybe there's a specific question from your CEO on Slack, whether they need to pull data from GA4 or Google Search Console, right? You don't need to specify that every single time. And that's an agent making decisions out of the tools that you've given them access to. So I would say using tools like Claude Code, Codex, Cursor, those would be the best. Um, there are also other kind of tools like more old school at this point, NA10 for example, or Make, where you can build an agent. It's just that they're more drop down, like just like drag and drop stuff, with actual building the workflow first and then turning into agentic by putting an LLM on top of it like a brain. Claude Code and Codex type of tools, like actual agentic harnesses, they just give you way more capabilities to build everything from scratch and take it to the extreme levels of complications. So yeah, so I would say start there, come up with one task and say, literally just start chatting with it and say, I want you to build an agent that solves this exact problem. Tell me what accesses do you need in order to solve this. They will tell you, hey, I need Google Search Console access, I need GA4 access, I need Slack access. Once you give them that, they might in fact again ask you a couple of questions, and you would have built your first agent in literally a matter of 1 hour.
Uh, very insightful thoughts there. Usman, you'd use one word, which I want to again double click on, and this can be my final question to you in this podcast. Is it possible to run SEO, like run it autonomously?
Absolutely not. I wish it was the case. And if it was the case, to be honest, I would have done that. I wouldn't have, an engineer in my team. Like anyone listening, I am a forward thinking AI, build sort of a strategist myself, right? Like I am not against using automation. To be honest, I in fact like push the boundaries as much as possible. You've seen people talk about how you shouldn't be outsourcing your thinking. I even am debating that in my head as well, right? Like there are points where I think like I just I was sparring with AI as a thinking partner, and it gave a better suggestion than what I had in my mind. So like I'm saying this because I think I am pro AI 100%, absolutely. But at the same time, it cannot run the show completely autonomously at this point. If it was the case, I wouldn't have an amazing person running my, the blog for Modash completely under her ownership. I wouldn't have an engineer in our team. I wouldn't have all the folks that we're working with on a contractual basis. So I would have just let AI do it. So I think any tool promising that as well is just trying to make a buck out of it. To be honest, I think what you need to understand is that you still have the experience as a strategist, as an someone with years of experience, having battle tested every single theory of yours, and you need to become the brain of everything, and then you just use AI for tactically running the show, just saving your capacity and mental bandwidth. So I wouldn't say you should be falling into the trap of running SEO, AEO autonomously. If you do that, I'm pretty sure in a couple of months you will regret it.
Makes sense, Usman. Is there anything that you'd like any final thoughts? Anything that I should have asked? Anything that you want to add to people listening?
I think we covered it all for the most part. I would just say for anyone listening to this, I understand if you have been in the SEO or marketing world at any point, or in any sort of a field, and looking at all of these YouTube videos or LinkedIn posts, or maybe a post on X about how someone just completely transformed their team, or their goals, or the outcomes using AI, and it feels like it's completely out of reach. I've seen literally a ton of people with like 15 years of experience, and they still think about Claude. It's like something that is completely out of their reach for some reason. I would just encourage you that it's literally a couple of minutes of game. You literally just watch one YouTube video, one blog post, and you would be already running all of these agents that we're talking about like it's something, heavenly. So yeah, so I would say don't put all of this automation stuff on a pedestal. It is definitely a lot of leverage, but you're literally 1 hour away to using all of this. And once you get into it, you will see how shallow and how easy it was to get started. So I would just encourage everyone to not be, you know, disappointed that they're actually behind, because they're not.
Got it. Lovely, lovely finishing thoughts, Usman. Thank you so much for taking the time to join this podcast on a Friday evening. Really appreciate it. And thank you.
Thanks so much, Ashish.